Hi there, I am back with another complete sew through. I'm going to be making my current subscription box by Needle Sharp, which is the heavyweight box, and I got the Southbank sweater in this gorgeous bamboo merino stretch fleece. It's super soft and fuzzy on the inside. It looks super cozy. This is not a silhouette I would ever pick for myself, so this has been really fun just to try new things out and see what I think of them. And the more I think about having this piece in my wardrobe, I'm kind of actually getting pretty excited about having it. I'm not a fan of turtlenecks, but this is a pretty loose one, I think, so we're gonna give it a go and see what I think. And I set up my cameras on the serger area, kind of moved my table over, so this isn't the most ideal situation, but I figure it's better than not doing it at all. So, okay, the first step we're going to do is we're going to sew our shoulder seams together, and I have this stabilizing elastic that came with the pattern. I don't know if you can see that. So I cut it just a little bit longer than my shoulder. You don't stretch it when you put it on. It's just to stabilize the shoulder seams so that they don't get stretched out over time. So I have to sew kind of at an odd angle here too. But I cut it a little longer than the shoulder seam because I need something to hold on to when I get to the end. I've actually never used this stuff before, so bear with me. I'm gonna move this a little bit over like that. There we go. Oh, it went right through the slot of my presser foot that I didn't even know was there. See that? Okay. I'm gonna lift up my presser foot and put it down. Make sure that doesn't happen again. It's a 3/8 inch seam allowance. My seam allowance finishes at about 1/4 of an inch, so a little bit more. So I'm going to trim a tiny bit. Serger's a little louder than my industrial machine, huh? Okay, I'm going to see if I caught this side. Looks good. There we go. Do my other shoulder. And the reason I'm doing this as a complete sew through is that it's a very quick sew. You can sew the entire thing on your serger or your home machine. If you use your home machine, you're going to have to use zigzag stitch. That way you'll have a stretch in the seams, and you don't pop a seam when you're wearing it. You need that zigzag for the stretch. And some home sewing machines do have a stretch stitch as well. I used to have one, it worked great. Takes a little longer because it kind of goes forward then back and forward then back. Okay, it wanted to hesitate at the beginning, so I'm just going to check that. There we go. Okay, so I have my shoulders, and now I'm going to attach my sleeve, and I'm going to do it differently than I would do a woven fabric because I'm going to keep the armhole open and sew it on that way. It's my front, looking for my notches, front, my back, perfect. Look at how fuzzy that is. Doesn't that look cozy? It's just starting to cool down here. It's perfect timing. So once I get it going, I'm going to look for my benchmark spots. I've never sewn one of these before, so I don't actually know how how well it fits, or really like how it fits. So it looks like it's about the same. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. Push my shoulder seam to the back. I always push my seams to the back if they are together and not able to be pressed open. And you'll notice that when I put on that elastic to stabilize the shoulder seam, I put it on the back side. The only reason I did that is because that's what the pattern said to do. I actually looked at that step since I've never used it before. And I kind of want to sew this as close to the way it's intended to be sewn, especially since lots of other people got this exact same box as me with the same fabric. There we go. We're going to check it over. The one thing you need to make sure is that your seam goes past your notches there. You wouldn't want them to be holes on the outside. That happens, especially on such small seam allowances. Okay, so we're going to do our other sleeve. This, I picked the dress one because I do like to wear dresses. I do have some boots. I think that might work well for this. I love an excuse to get some new tights. Okay, so I'm going to get it started, then I'm going to position it all. Push my seam to the back. Typically there's a notch. Oh, there it is. I think the other one was too shallow. So that's one of my target points right there. I thought it didn't have it or something. But it does. I think on my other sleeve it just didn't get notched deep enough to show. And because I was being really conservative with my notching because this is a really narrow seam allowance. I know my machine will be finicky in that spot. That's why I was kind of ooching it. Got to know your machine's strengths and weaknesses, don't you? Make sure you never serge the other pieces of your garment under there. There we go. That's where I had my funny little hiccups. I'm just making sure. Okay, and now we're going to do the underarm seam. You'll notice that I have already attached my pockets, and that's because I didn't want to bop back and forth between the machines. So you don't need to use a stretch stitch when you attach your pockets, and then I understitched it as well. You can see that. We're going to do this in one long stitch, but when I get to my pocket, it's going to be funny since I'm using my serger. It's not going to want to go on the underside of the pocket and down. I just know that about the serger and sewing pockets, and when I get to that, I'm going to clip it. I'm going to push my seam, armhole seam to the sleeve. Actually, on this one, I'm going to split it because of the bulk. Since it's fleece, it's a little bulkier, and I kind of want it to go as smoothly as possible so I don't have it, because it's such a narrow seam allowance, right? I don't want it to be too close. Doesn't matter which one. Oh, it wanted to push it away. There we go. Had to hold it under the blade there. So I think I'll be able to turn this corner here okay. I'm probably going to go back and reinforce it with my single needle machine, my industrial. Because when I go around here, I'm going to have to go here and then here, turn that corner. And I think it's this corner I'm going to have a lot of trouble getting by right there. That's a really tricky one for my machine. We'll line up these seams. And I kind of want to straighten it out as I go, like this, to make sure I catch it. I think I got it. My serger's just not as agile as some sergers out there. The reason that you can't get that kind of a turn is because the blade sits in front of where the stitching is happening quite a bit. Like mine is about 1/2 inch in front of the stitching. So the blade is in a different spot than the needles are. So it's not that my machine can't turn that corner. It's just that since the needles aren't right next to where the blade is, they're not doing the same thing at the same time, or they're not in the same spot. And that way, if I needed to get to this spot with the needles, my blade's right here. But I needed to already turn the corner with the blade, and that way I have to just be careful with that. So we're going to do our best here, straighten it out. Since it is a knit, it's pretty forgiving. Let's see how we do. So I'm kind of looking where the needle is. I'm going to help it through there. See, that's the mess I usually get. And so what I'm going to do is go back and reinforce this with my regular sewing machine. Because you wouldn't want there to be a hole right there where your pocket is, because that is your side seam. All right, let's do our other one, and then we will pretty much have a dress. All we need to do is put the bands on. Okay, and we're going to split our seam, one to the front, one to the back. Doesn't matter which one. And rather, I should say one to the armhole and one not to the armhole. It's not really to the front and the back in this case. I think the scariest part about using a serger is the danger of cutting into something you're not sewing. So if, you know, like the bottom of your garment kind of snuck in there, I've done it, like especially when I was new to a serger, you just don't even know it, and that blade's sharp. You get kind of adept at feeling the thicknesses and making sure that you don't have anything extra in there that you don't want to sew. We're only sewing the bits we want to sew. Okay, here we go again. Gotta love a dress with pockets though, huh? This is all sorts of cozy. When you're turning a curve like that, one way to think of getting around it is that the pivot point is right here. So holding there kind of fixes the fabric, and then it wants to curve around. I should have demonstrated that when I was doing it. Okay, here we go. Get by that spot. Yeah, see? I missed it, so I've got to go back and stitch that right there. And I would anyway, even if I had caught it, just because I really don't trust the serger in a high stress point right there. I feel like it would be better to reinforce it since it's a pocket, and I'm kind of hard on my clothes, to be honest. Okay, so next up we have the bottom band. So we just sew the side seams of the band. And I think it's good that this isn't cut all in one really long piece. One long piece is a little bit cumbersome to try and sew. And it would also probably be a little too stretchy because when you interrupt the circumference with two seams, it's going to be a little bit more stable. So let's see here. It's easy to tell my front from my back because the back is always a higher neck on almost everything. The only example I can think of where it's not like that is the Moneta dress. It's the reverse. And so if you lose track of which one was your front and which one was your back, you could look at the hem and see which one's bigger. And it looks like the front, is that the front? The front is the bigger side. I'm gonna sew it all in one, just like this. See let's keep track here. Yeah, so it goes, this is the front piece right here. And for pushing your seam on this band, I would do it the way it wants to go. Sometimes this, because the serger thread does kind of have like a right and wrong side to the thread, it will push the seam a certain direction. So it's good to just kind of abide by that when you're kind of doing something that's going to be encased like this, so that it just stays the way it wants to go anyway. Why fight it? Okay, so this is the front. I'm going to go like this. See, that's exactly why we're going to reinforce our little bottom of our pocket seam right there with the regular machine. Because these are pushing kind of forward, I'm going to push this one to the back and let them nest together. Just like that. The danger with this is going to be torquing. You don't want to use pins too much when you're using your serger, so I'm going to try and do this without the pins. And just use my anchor points as my guides. Okay, now we have it in the machine. We're going to arrange it a little bit better. So we have, so I kind of wanted to get it in the shape that it's going to be. Just like that. So there's my circle, just like that. Here's my other circle, just like that. And then here's one of my target points right here. I'm going to push the seam towards the back, and that one towards that. Just like that. If you wanted to pin that just kind of away from the seam, that would be a great idea. And now I have all these notches right here as my guide. So the torquing I'm talking about can happen in the band. If this leg goes a different rate to this one, it'll start torquing. You don't want that. One tip I find with knits too is if you're not going to sew your knit for a while, don't cut it out until you're right before. Most knits have this terrible habit of curling, and it makes it really difficult to sew. I am not going to let go of this spot until I get there. There we go. No torquing allowed. All right, and now we're going to match up the seam. Just like that. My next anchor point guide target spot is locked in and ready. See how this is kind of curling? I'm going to just say no to curling. Okay, it's a little thick for my machine here and most sergers, so I'm going to kind of help it along here. I like to pull off what's being cut off so that it doesn't push the blade away from my garment. I've learned that kind of the hard way. I think maybe just my machine does something like that. It definitely would not happen in an industrial serger. They're far more stable. Okay, so where's our next target? There's our notch. There's our notch. Locked. We are ready. Line up all these edges. Oh, just like that. See, it's pushing it away. That better not be torquing, I see right there. No reason for it. We're lining it up perfectly. Oh no, it's not torquing. See that? Okay. But better to catch it now than later. It'll look really weird if we're wearing it and it's torquing. Okay, last spot right here. This is the hardest one of all of your bands because it's the longest. All the others are a little shorter. Kind of leave a little tail and then I pull it. I've never really figured out a more elegant way of doing that, but I like to lock the stitch. Get rid of all this. Okay, let's see. It's our band. And that's the hem of the dress. Just a nice little band like that. Kind of like a big sweatshirt. Okay, so let's see what we have next here. The neck. It's a lot of dress. All right. So that seam, the side seam. All right, I don't think there's any notch. Oh, there is a notch on here. Oh, this is a very small, much smaller turtleneck than I thought. We'll see. Not a big fan of turtlenecks. But the cozy factor, I'm a big fan of that. Okay, so got it in half the way I want. Just like that. And because this has that center notch back there, I'm going to match it to the center back neck. As opposed to, I see a lot of controversy on where to line up seams like this on a neckline. I like to do it to the shoulder. I like the continuous line of the shoulder and then it being clean front and back. People look for it on the back there, whereas you just don't really look for it on the shoulder. But on this one, I'm going to put it to the center back neck so that I can meet my target front notch, no problem. Just want to see how this wants to turn. It does want to turn that way, right? What do you guys think? I think like that. Okay. It's kind of a big thickness there. Being kind of fussy because, you know, it's one of my last things. Like, we're doing the finishing techniques all in one, which is great. I weighted my dress on the table so it's not pulling against my serger needles. You really don't want that. Serger needles are much more expensive to replace, and it's a little more catastrophic if you hurt the machine and when you break a needle. Okay, so here's my target. I'm going to stretch the neck to fit, push my seam to the back neck, the back I mean. I kind of wish I would have put the elastic on the front side so that it naturally wanted to go to the, see how it wants to push towards the front? I kind of wish I would have put it on the front now. You can do that with yours. You can learn from my thing here. I'm just being really fussy because it's my last one. Like, I don't have to do any hems. Once I put the cuffs on, this dress is done. Super quick. And you put the cuffs on just like we're doing this. We're just getting smaller and smaller bands to sew on. And I just want to make sure I don't get any torquing too. One important thing to think about when you're sewing with knits and you have to stretch something to fit while you're serging it, you want to make sure you're not pulling on the needles while you're sewing. It's really bad for the machine, the needles, and you can break them. And typically we don't change our needle as often on our sergers, so we don't have as many laying around. Those thicknesses, man, my blade wants to push it out. I'm going to go back over that. See that? My serger does not like those thicknesses. Okay, so there's our neck. And you'll notice that my thread is a little bit thicker than yours. I use a Tex 40 because I use it for our factory here. You probably have Tex 27. It's a lot more soft. Okay, now it's time to do our cuffs. And we've got 2, and then we're done with our dress. Okay, so let's see here. Got our cuffs, we're ready to go, and we're going to sew the short ends together, making continuous circles. Okay, here's our cuff, just like this. 2 more seams and this dress is done, and then I'll reinforce my pocket opening as well, my pocket side seam. Okay, I'm gonna make sure those are folding the same way as each other. I'm kind of just breaking it in, making it want to stay like this. That, and then also just making sure I'm not getting any torquing. Torquing and knits are kind of the hand-in-hand nemesis. Okay. Let's see if my seam's going the same way. Break it in a little bit. All right, there's no front or back. I think what I will do is just make sure that my seams are offset, just because to reduce that bulk, especially with my machine. It obviously doesn't like it. I don't want to do it on the cuff though. I'm trying to make it behave right now. So the way I like to sew small hems like this is from the inside. I really don't know how else you can do it. But I think I did struggle for a long time when I was a beginner getting my hems done because from the outside the other way. So I like to sew from the inside just like this. And I'm going to start away from this juncture here. And get it onto there and then start my sewing. There's not a whole lot of stretching that needs to be done. I'm really glad I broke in the cuff because now it just really wants to seat in there nicely. Just like that. Okay. Kind of just locking up the threads there, that's why I do that. Here's my other little cuff, my last seam. So quick. Quick to cozy. It's exactly what we want, right? I could see making a modified one of these into like just some loungewear. This might become loungewear. All right. Okay, I'm going to start away from my thick seam again. Okay. Making sure all my edges are lined up. Don't want to miss your seam. That's where holes and seams happen. We've all bought that shirt that had the hole in the side seam. Little piece of what I cut got flipped into there. I'm just going to pull it out gently so I don't snag my serging. Or overlocking, whatever you like to call it. Where'd it go? Okay, let's see how it looks. Where's the bottom? It's a lot of dress, isn't it? Okay, here we go. Ooh, it's so cozy and but just like really yummy fabric. It's amazing fabric. She's so good at picking them out. Okay, you can see a little Southbank sweater. Bottom. My last little thing I'm gonna do. Oh, maybe I won't. Actually, I do have a back neck seam. If I didn't have this back neck seam, this is one thing. Like, because I usually like to line this up to the shoulder, then I get kind of confused with the front and the back sometimes. And what I do is I just attach a piece of ribbon there so I always know that that's the back. But I don't have to do that because I have my back neck seam here. And I will definitely be posting pictures on Instagram on how this turned out and how it looks and how it fits. Let's see. And I think I sewed the size 12, just so you guys know. So this was my Needle Sharp subscription box, the heavyweight box for September, I think. And let's see, my August one was the Charlie Kaftan, and my next one I think is going to be a shirt dress of some sort. Maybe that's my September box. I don't know. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you make something really cozy really soon. Take care. Bye.